when I quit drinking, I'm like, man, I spent so much time in bars that I'm going to have so much time. I don't know what to do with myself. The funny thing is, it's the complete opposite. Since I've quit drinking, and even with all the stuff that's happened in my life, financially, moving, doing all this, downsizing, all the craziness in my life that's happened over the last 5 years, 4.5 years, time has flown by. And the funny thing is that when I used to be in the bars, it was like time was standing still. And you would think it would be the opposite, but it wasn't. My days were dragged on and my nights were dragged on, less sleep. And it's like now I don't have time to breathe. Welcome to another episode of Kaizen Cast. Small steps, big changes. Everyone knows what our motto is. It's actually to help others, 1% growth each day, and just to become a better person. We also always talk about overcoming addictions because that's really what this podcast is about. But, add all of those things together. That's what we're trying to improve each day. And I'll tell you this, it's not easy. Some days easier than others. Let's get right into it because I have a few questions, and I know a lot of people. I've done this on a few other podcasts, and people really, really enjoy this. When I get questions either sent in from TikTok or Instagram or DM'd, and they ask me questions, and I wait to do it on the podcast to answer because I want people to obviously listen to the podcast, but also I just think the message gets out there because there's some really great questions. So I figured I'd start with the questions today instead of ending with them. And then we'll talk about some of the stuff that's been going on over the past week and how I've been dealing with stuff myself personally, along with stuff that's actually happened to my son through baseball. But let's start with a couple questions that have been asked. It says, how do you feel about non-alcoholic beer or non-alcoholic drinks for you or for other people? Well, for me personally, first of all, I hate beer, so I never really cared whether non-alcoholic or regular. Not for me. The non-alcoholic drinks, once in a great while, I'll have something just because I want to mix it up. More for the fact that because I only drink either seltzer water or regular water. I've actually, not to get off the question, but I've actually turned myself on to drinking a lot more tea. Which is actually very good for you, especially green tea. But as for the non-alcoholic drinks, I mean, for me personally, I could take it or leave it. But I do know a lot of people that have actually quit drinking that actually love the taste of beer. And there's some really good non-alcoholic beers out there that I know people like to drink. One of the older ones being Old Duels, but like there's a whole bunch of them out there now and I'm sorry, I don't know the names of them because like I said, I don't drink beer. And then those mocktails, it's always good to have like a fruity drink. I just have to be careful with all the sugar because of my liver. I just have to be super careful about trying to, not take in too much sugar. So once in a great while for me, it's okay. But I think, listen, I'm seeing more and more, of these bars pop up they're non-alcoholic bars that people are going there and they make mocktails and I think it's going to turn into a trend where it turns into some kind of like nightclub situation where there's going to be no alcohol, and they'll have DJs and do all this stuff. I don't know if it'll ever be as big as something like, what happens in the clubs in Vegas or anything like that, because those things are massive and monstrous every weekend. And people love to party in these dark places. And again, been there, done that. Don't look back on it at all and say, oh man, I missed that. Because I don't. I just wasted a lot of energy, time, and money in places like that. But again, the non-alcoholic drinks, I could take them or leave them. All right, let's see. Next question. It said, "What did you bring into your life to fill the void that was formerly filled by your addiction?" Oh, that's a great one. That's an unbelievable question. There's a lot of things that I brought into my life, and most of them were changes. See, what I've realized, when you have idle time, that's the devil's time, and that's when you usually do bad things. What I brought into my life is spiritual stuff, like God. Been more connected with my family. Not that I wasn't connected with my kids and other stuff, and that sounds wrong. But what I meant by that was, because I've disconnected from money so much, because technically I had to. It's just I don't have control of how that works. I've put my energy towards other stuff, and it's made me a more well-rounded person, I believe. My health is 100 times better. My sleep is 100 times better. I think my patience is 1,000 times better. I had no patience early on in life. So, I mean, the changes I've made in my life, to fill the void, like it's funny. That question even goes deeper, because I remember this like it was yesterday, and we're on 5 years. March 7th was 5 years of no drinking, and I quit opioids in 16, April of 16. And I remember saying this to my wife. When I quit drinking, I'm like, man, I spent so much time in bars that I'm going to have so much time, I don't know what to do with myself. The funny thing is, it's the complete opposite. Since I've quit drinking, and even with all the stuff that's happened in my life, financially, moving, doing all this, downsizing, all the craziness in my life that's happened over the last 5 years, 4.5 years, time has flown by. And the funny thing is that when I used to be in the bars, it was like time was standing still. And you would think it would be the opposite, but it wasn't. My days were dragged on, and my nights were dragged on, less sleep. And it's like, now I don't have time to breathe. I don't have much to show for it financially, but I do have spiritually, and I do have what I've changed in my life is some of the most amazing things that I've taken away from this. It's truly, it's hard to explain. It's almost like euphoric sometimes. It really is. And for me to finally come out and say it, and that's why that question was so great. They're like the void of not drinking went away very, very easily, very fast. Because again, I guess I'm blessed, because I don't white knuckle it like a lot of people do. And what I mean by that is that when people walk into a bar, they're like, oh, they're jonesing to have a drink. Once I put my mind to something, that's it. It's over. Now, once I put my mind to something bad, like if I'm going to go drink, then I'm going to drink. Like it's just the way I am as a person. And like I said, I'm blessed and cursed. So the void has been gone for a very long time. And my days are filled with so much other great stuff, even on the days that are very hard. Because now, instead of looking at it as like, oh, this is punishment, I look at it as this is a challenge. And then once you defeat whatever little thing you have to do, because I used to look at it that way all the time. Oh, I got this to do. I got this. When is this stuff going to end? It never ends. You're going to have stuff to do every single day. That's what life's about. But when you take it head on and you actually attack it and you do accomplish it, it's like, man, that felt great. I never looked at life like that, because I was always living in the future. Never looked at the small W's. And now I do. So the void is completely gone. And those are the things that I've done, I mean, the biggest one has to be spiritually, and in the beginning, that wasn't even really the case. I was working on that through my therapist and also working on my patients, which has come a very long way, and I'm actually proud of that because that one's a hard one. And even in my family, patience is not, it's not our best trait, but I feel like through this time, I've learned so much and learned to enjoy the moments that I'm in right now. Like right at this second that I'm working with Kaizen Cast and doing what I'm doing puts me in a great mood. I never was like that. Never was like that. And it's such a better way to live. You don't have cortisol. You don't have any of the things, anxiety, all that stuff is gone. And I do believe in the fact that, God had a part to do with that. Because I told you, I don't even know, I lost track of how many weeks we're on now. It could be 27, 28 weeks I don't have anxiety anymore. I don't get it. It doesn't. Every morning, it's like clockwork. I wake up, I do my prayers, I listen to prayers. It helps me get my day started. It helps me relax. It keeps me under control. Unlike before, I used to wake up and it was like I was going 110 miles an hour and my brain it wouldn't shut off. Now, my brain still goes, but it's not like it was. And it was always fast forward, go faster, on to the next thing, on to the next thing. And I couldn't even enjoy my coffee. Never mind enjoy, like if I was making money that day or whatever that whatever it was, to stay in the moment. So let's try one more question. Does it get you depressed watching your son play baseball? Does it put you in a dark place or make you happy seeing him succeed? Oh, that's an unbelievable question because and it's funny, this will lead into where I'm going to go with the rest of the podcast today because I've been sharing with you guys through Instagram and TikTok with the shorts, the progress of what has happened with Ty and separating his shoulder, and now he has to have surgery. But let me answer this question first because none of it gets me depressed. Not even in my worst moment when I was in New Jersey, when I was coaching them, when I expected, out of all my boys, when I expected so much of them as baseball players, was I ever depressed? I always as a dad, and I think, I think there's a lot of dads that would agree with me, and I think there could be dads that would be like, that actually do the opposite. But as a dad, you want your kids to supersede anything you've done. Be more successful, whether it's baseball, whether it's accomplishing jobs or whatever it may be, more money, whatever, having a beautiful life, like trying not to make the mistakes that I've made. And I've always said that. So no, depression was never the word. Did I want them to have more? And did I want to give them more because I had the ability to do it because I was in the game at such a young age? Unlike everything I did in baseball, I made my own way. And I always said to my kids, I have the opportunity to help you so much more than my dad. Not that my dad was the most amazing person in the world, but he didn't have baseball connections. That's just not it wasn't like that when I was a kid. We made our own way. Like, I have so many connections in the baseball world that I always wanted to give them the best. And sometimes I probably came across as the wrong way, but that's what I always meant by that. And it's the most happy feeling. Forget about dark place. There's no dark places. I was in a dark place for me with baseball, but not for my kids. Not for my kids at all. None of them. I was in a dark place for me that I didn't realize. It took me a long time to uncover. But for my kids, no, it's one of the happiest places. I was just telling Ethan this today. Like, as everybody knows, let's lead into where we're going to go with this week with Ty. Ty's been doing unbelievable things at IMG. And I've gotten reports back from the head of baseball operations, Danny Simon, and multiple other people there told me not only what an unbelievable player he was or is, but off the field, what an unbelievable person he is. And to watch my son take a normal dive down the third base line, and it looked perfect. He just missed the ball it just went underneath his glove, and it looked like nothing was wrong. To watch him get up to where it was, I see him holding like his shoulder was off center a little bit, and then I'm watching him trying to put it back in, and it finally gets back into place, and he wants to stay on the field, and I'm standing by the fence, and I'm watching all this. I can't believe this happened, almost 3 weeks ago, to a point where he felt good enough where he was deadlifting 335 3 days later, and he was hitting in the cages 3/4 swings with finishing with two hands, with no pain. And I still made him go get an X-ray and an MRI to make sure that there was no other damage outside of the fact that he had a subluxation. And sure enough, we found out that he tore his labrum. So that's a little tissue that's in between the shoulder and the rotator cuff. And when it pops out like that, because he's such a big kid, the bone can kind of push through the labrum, and that's how you tear your labrum. So for me, that would have put me in depression way back when. And today, not so much. I just look at it as, okay, God has a plan for him. I can't get upset about this. This is life. Stuff like this happens. How do we fix it? See, like, that's what I'm taking out of all this from a personal standpoint. I feel bad. I feel horrible. I want to take the pain from him. And he doesn't really have much pain, but I want to take the injury away from him, give it to me. Like I said, I told everybody the day we found out, like, I had great news about my hip and I was able to go hit golf balls already. And it's, I'm blessed with all that. But you think I wouldn't want to take the labor and tear for my own son? Absolutely. So he can continue to keep doing what he was doing. He was on a path to do some great things the rest of this year. But that's not how life works. And when I spoke to Dan on the phone, the head of baseball operations, what an unbelievable man, by the way, picked up my call right away, told me how much he loved Ty, told me what a great player he was, told me what a great person he was, what the impact he's had on IMG. He's exceeded every expectation that they've ever had for him, and their expectations were super high when he walked on campus. That, as a dad, is some of the best compliments that you can get, because you can't, that fulfillment or that feeling there's nothing like it, because it's all the years of like trying to teach them how to become a man and how to become a young man and how to do the right things. And not every time does that work out properly. And especially in this case where he did nothing wrong. But when I hear all these compliments, it feels great, but in the same breath, it's disappointing because he got hurt. But we can't cry over it. We can't get upset. Like, and the funny thing is that Dan asked me like halfway through the conversation, how am I doing? And I was like, man, it's funny you should bring that up, because I thought about this, and I'm in such a good place mentally in my life, and I'm very calm about this. I said, if this was 7 years ago when Tommy was at IMG, or 6 years ago, and Tommy was Thai, I would have went ape shit and found ways to blame this, that, and the other thing. And how did this happen to him? Because this isn't fair. Life's not fair. This time, we just dealt with it like men. And like, sometimes you're dealt a shitty hand and you got to deal with it. So what do? I had my wife get on the phone with the best surgeon in Sarasota area, which happens to be the twin brother of who did my hip. He handles all the IMG guys, and he also handles the Pittsburgh Pirate minor league team guys here. So very well versed in shoulders and labrum tears. And we had him in an appointment within 2 days. Took it into our own hands. Not that IMG couldn't have done that, but I wanted him to see this doctor. Told Dan that this is who we were going to see. He said, we love that. Perfect. And then this leads into the power of positivity and manifestation, because the only thing I asked for, and I guess you want to say prayed on, was that there were no bone chips, because some of the x-rays or the doctor that looked at his MRI said, well, if he's having clicking in his shoulder, there's probably some little bone chips in there. Well, that doesn't make me happy, because that means they got floaters in there. They got to go in and clean it all out and do all that stuff. Well, we get to the appointment on Monday morning. Doc sees his shoulder and was like, show me where there's the actual bone of the MRI, and it's actually white inside the bone. And he's like, the whiteness is actually a bruise. That's from the subluxation. Explained it perfectly. He's like, then you can see the little line. That's the tear in the labrum. And he's like, in the MRI, there's no bone chips. Okay, blessed. And he's like, let's take an x-ray just to double check. We did it. Didn't see any bone chips. Okay. He said, this is an easy fix. He's like, we do it now. You'll be back in 3 months. Now, again, the positive is no bone chips. The negative is that his season is over for the rest of the year, and then he's back into rehab. And he had an injury last year with his knee, which is fully recovered, from the meniscus tear. So you have those ups and downs through this process, right? And this is life. We do this every single day. So we try to stay in the moment and stay positive. So now we're setting up the surgery, because he said we could let it rest for, 4 weeks, and, he could still play on it, but there's a 50-50 chance that it's going to pop out. And I'm like, we're not doing 50-50 anything. Let's get this cleaned up, do it the right way, so we can close this chapter and get into a new chapter, because I just always feel like if you're going to give me 50, that's a coin toss. I don't want a coin toss. I want something that's going to be a little bit more secure. 10%, okay. Well, there's always a 10% chance of anything. Like, nothing's 100% in life. So we're going to go this route. Sure enough, we sit down, and this is even crazier, and this is why I say the power of positivity and manifestation is real, which I knew they were going to give us a hard time about him doing the surgery in the surgical center, or if you had to go to the hospital, because of my insurance, Blue Cross Blue Shield, because again, it's like doctors and the insurance company fighting where they have to do it, so who can get paid and all this nonsense. It's nothing that we can handle. So I knew they were going to say they were having to do it in the hospital, because they just did my hip in the hospital, and 3 years ago I had my hip done in the surgical center. So I called the doctor's office. They said, oh, we have him scheduled for April 24th. Yesterday was April 1st. I'm like, God, that doesn't work. And then I'm like, okay, let's solve a problem. And God being on our side, remember, no such thing as luck and no such thing as coincidence. Things happen for a reason. 2 days before April 1st, and I barely ever check our mail, but I checked the mail and there was these 2 insurance cards, but it was United Healthcare. So I thought it was like a joke, like a scam that I'm reading. And it's actually my, our where we do our insurance through local 107. And I'm like, maybe we changed insurances. I didn't know. Like, I don't follow up on this stuff. Like, it's not like, that's not what I'm focused on. Well, sure enough, I call United Healthcare, and we did. We switched insurance companies to United Healthcare from Blue Cross Blue Shield. Found out that doing that, we could have the surgery in the surgical center, and they had us locked in now for April 15th, and we were like over the moon about it. Wake up this morning and just thank God for everything that he's done. Get in the car, and I get a call from Coastal Orthopedic, and Dr. Valadie's assistant, Susan, who's a wonderful lady, said, I have even better news. How about we come in on Tuesday, April 8th, and we clean it up then? And I'm like, small W's that I never would have ever thought about as a small W, and that's actually big W's, because the faster we can get it done, the faster he can start rehabbing. And I look at it this way. All those things are positive news, even though we're dealing with a shitty situation. And that's exactly what I said in my TikTok and in my situation with, in Instagram and TikTok this morning, because it truly is a godsend.
Amy said,
Yeah.
I'll send a message to TJ, but the gate's broken off of White Eagle to get in residence. We're turning around, and then I am on the 44th with school traffic and pickup lines, so I'm wrapping it back around all Lakewood Ranch.
Okay. Just answer her back. Say, no problem. Tell her we're in the middle of filming like my thing. So truly blessed that all of this has kind of fallen into place, that now Ty will have surgery on Tuesday, the 8th. And I share this journey with everybody because I could have never have handled this situation if it was 4, 5, 6 years ago. I was completely lost, mentally and physically, completely lost. Now, I'm ecstatic that everything fell into place the way it did, and we're having surgery earlier. Not that I want my son to have surgery, but the doc said, he was like, listen, this is a simple, it's going to be arthroscopic. It's going to be quick. We'll be able to get in, get out, fix that thing, and then you can start rehab. And rehab will only be 3 months, not 4 to 6 months. So that puts us in a better place for him to get into the junior college that he wants to go to, hopefully, and he'll be ready for fall baseball. Is it the most ideal situation for him? Absolutely not. But we're going to make it work, because you have to overcome adversity. I say this all the time, manifestation, but also then overcome. How do you deal with adversity? Most people don't handle adversity very well. And I didn't for a long time. You just have to roll with it. It's the best way I can put it. If you roll with it and figure out a solution, you're coming out on top. You never get to where you want to go in life, in anything, from point A to point B. You're always zigzagging. Very rarely, I'm not saying never. I never say no. I say this all the time. You never say never and never say 100%, because it's never happened. But you go from point A to point B, usually you're making some turns in between. It's just the way life works. Just try to follow your goals and what you're trying to do in life, and bring God into your life. Because when you do that and you have the power of prayer and positivity, it works. And it's on his time, not our time. Things happen for a reason. Not because you were lucky, not because it was coincidence. It happens for a reason, everything. Just like me uncovering the fact that I never would have played professional baseball. I had 2 hip replacements by the time I was 53. Because I was born like that. Never got into my hips right when I swung the baseball bat. That's why I didn't hit home runs. But it took me until I was 51 to 53 to realize all that, because I spoke to doctors. And I always thought, listen, the other part of it was my mind was, I was a nut. And I competed at such a high level that I hated to lose. And I worshiped the game, which, again, we've spoken about that. You can't worship anything but God. So all these puzzle pieces are now coming into place, but it took me 53 years to understand that. And if I can help somebody uncover that a little bit sooner in their life and eliminate what I like to say, masking the pain or masking some sort of problem that we've had for a long time with alcohol or drugs or both, then I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing here, is helping others get over this stuff. And again, I'm not a doctor. This is all real life stuff that I've lived and still living and still learning. That's one thing I think I will always remember going forward now. When I was so young, again, the worshiping part of money and making millions of dollars, and that's what I wanted, and I did do it. But where did it get me? It got me to a lot of places that weren't great, that's for sure, because I worshiped it. I didn't have balance. I'm finally having balance in my life, and it's the most comfortable I've ever been in my life, my whole life. And my parents did an unbelievable job of raising me. I lived in a great neighborhood. I grew up with anything I wanted. It wasn't like, oh, I was poor and I was like, I didn't have sneakers. I had everything. But I may believe I was comfortable in my own skin, but now truly I'm comfortable in my own skin. I don't do things to please people. I do them to please me and my family, and that's it. If other people agree, great. If other people don't, that's fine too. That's what life's made of. I always thought that I had to go through life pleasing everybody. It's not even possible. You have to please yourself first. And I don't mean that in a selfish way, but you have to be comfortable in your own skin. And then the ultimate goal, and I was just saying this, that is to be able to help others, right? When you're helping others, that gives you the most fulfillment. So that's where this next chapter of my life is going. I didn't have that. And I filled it with other stuff, which was drugs, alcohol, and money. It's a horrible way to live. The fulfillment you get by helping someone is the most amazing thing. It's euphoric. Solving problems and helping others. It's as simple as that in life. So please continue to follow, continue to listen, continue to like, share the message, because the more people that hear this, the better chance we have of helping others. God bless. Have a great rest of the week, and I'll see you next time.